Guys, this is John Armwood here, reporting for She Got Game. I'm here with the lovely Princeton head coach, former Seton Hall cheerleader, Claudia Ralph. How's everything going?
Hey, it's going good.
Good, 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 good. I'm glad to hear it. There's a lot to do with you. You know, a lot of people may not know your story. I really hope to peel it back layer by layer today, and hopefully, you could leave some insight for anyone who wants to follow upon the path, and anyone who may be looking up to you and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Appreciate you. So let's just start from the beginning. Where are you originally from?
So I live in northern New Jersey. It's where I'm from. That's where I live. Little town called Hillsdale. It's about 25 miles outside of Manhattan. I guess its only claim to fame is that Livy Dunn is also from my hometown. So I always joke that I'm the second most famous person from my hometown, besides Livy Dunn. But she's not that much younger than I am. But yeah, like 25 miles outside Manhattan, a really cool place to grow up, a place with awesome sports and awesome, small town feel. And it really shaped the way I grew up in the world and the way I was able to come into the real world, we'll call it, after college.
Absolutely. For viewers at home that may not know what that means, she's more of a New Yorker than Jersey for sure. That Bergen County line's up there, and that Teaneck area and all that stuff. That's usually New York or more Phil. But you know, um, again, how did you get involved in sports? Being from up there, it's a real city vibe and stuff like that. It's a very different energy than kind of central or I guess northern Jersey, whatever you would like to say. How did you begin getting involved in sports?
Yeah, well, where I live is super suburban, so I feel like the green space was always just like everybody played sports growing up. But my family has always been really athletic. My grandpa growing up, he coached girls basketball at the high school level, he coached tennis, like girls and boys tennis. And then my dad played college tennis and my uncle played college basketball, they're brothers. So we've always just been like an athletic family. We joke that we have really good athletic genes. I obviously cheered in college, and my brother played golf at the University of Scranton, and my sister still plays lacrosse, taking a fifth year at a Division I school. So we've just always been a sports family, and we've all tried, all different sports. We've never just been pigeonholed to like one kind of sport. Obviously, as we got older, we specialized, but it was just natural that we were gonna be playing sports and starting sports at a young age because we were just, in an athletic family.
Oh, well, you kind of just mentioned your grandfather. You have a younger sister, or yeah, younger sister.
Younger, yeah.
Was there anyone specifically who kind of helped guide you into cheering, or what did you get into before you got to cheering and stuff like that?
I think that cheering was a really just like a me decision. I will say that nothing really like nobody in my family really had a cheerleading background. My grandma cheered in like the 50s, but that's like a completely different sport than it is now.
Right.
But when I was in first grade, I did like little flag cheerleading. I stopped to like pursue club soccer, which I was in second grade, but club soccer was never really playing. And then when I got to like I think fourth grade, it was time to like pick, did I want to cheer on Sundays or club soccer on Sundays? And I don't know why I picked cheer. I don't know what possessed me to pick cheerleading, but it's a decision I'm very happy that little, 9-year-old me made because it really just shaped the rest of my athletic career. Yeah, I played soccer growing up and I played softball and I played basketball, but I'm 5'2". Like no, I was not going anywhere in any of those sports. I'm short and cheer was the perfect sport for me. And I just kind of stuck with it through high school. And that's really what I knew I wanted to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I was gonna say 5'2" is kind of tough to jump in any other sport.
Yeah, no, I was not playing. My sister is 5'7" and she plays lacrosse, so that's a little bit of a different story than me.
If you don't mind, where does she play at?
She plays at Lindenwood in St. Charles. They just made the transition from D2 to D1. So she did her 4 years at a different Division I school and then grad transferred there.
Congratulations to her, man. Shout out to her.
Yeah.
So here at She Got Game, we like to do a segment where we call it our She Got Game moment, right? And what that usually means is like at some point, whether young, older in your career, you kind of hit a point of like I've arrived, right? Everyone has the imposter syndrome, and at one point in your career, did you reach your She Got Game moment? or what was your she got game moment?
It's so funny because you said, like, some people don't hit it till they get older, and I really think that when I transferred and made the team at Seton Hall, that really was a pivotal moment for me as just a person, as a cheerleader, as an athlete. I really proved to myself that, like, I mean, I, like, walked through fire to get to that moment, like, it was not an easy road transferring, it was not something that I would wish on anybody, but when I, like, saw my number on that sheet, everything changed for me, my entire, like, level of confidence changed, my outlook on life changed because, like, I knew that nobody like, yeah, I had coaches and yeah, I had, you know, teammates and yeah, I had this, but like I was the person that did that for myself. And I proved to myself that I could do it. I knew I could do it the whole time, but I proved to every other person that, told me that cheerleading is just, it's not a sport. It's not this. It's not that. It is this. It's, just shaking your palms on the sidelines. That, I mean, I went to a Power Six school. I cheered in like the biggest arenas in the country, sold out. Like that was like my like moment and was, nothing will ever like I don't know if anything will ever compare to that moment, but that was just like seeing that my number on that list was just like changed my entire life.
You got to see kind of all your hard work, and I can only imagine. I mean, I can only imagine transfers already, like you said, it's tough trying to get in a new area, get your footing. I transferred myself, so I kind of know what that's like. But as far as like fighting for your life out there, trying to make a team, I can only imagine, finally seeing the gratification and your hard work pay off. It's got to be amazing.
Yeah, and it's cheerleading is not like, basketball where you open and when I transferred, the transfer portal wasn't really fun and cool like
Yeah,
it is now. It was really daunting to go somewhere else, and cheerleading is not, and at Seton Hall, there's no recruiting. You just show up to the tryout in September, so you had to commit to going to school for that semester. And I had went back and forth, like, do I want to go to school that semester? Do I not? And obviously I'm really happy I did, but I knew that I would have never let it go. I would never like been over the fact that I didn't give it a shot. And I'm just eternally grateful every day that I bet on myself and I walked into that trial. I think there were like 70 people trying out for 20 spots and there were like five new people. There were like five new spots for people that hadn't been on the team already. And so like I took a gamble on myself, but it was a gamble that I'm so happy that I took.
absolutely, absolutely. At some point, everyone's got to take that leap of faith to jump to that next level, right? A part of cheering, right? A lot of it, there's got to be, even with things we love, there's things apart. There's things we hate about it, there's things we love about it, and there's things we're like kind of indifferent about. What would you say came the most naturally to you when it came to cheer?
So I think that there are two things that probably came most naturally to me. First is the game day aspect and just being out in a crowd. I'm not afraid of public speaking. I'm not afraid to, talk to people or network or anything like that. So I knew like game day, like being on the sidelines is really like my forte. Like I was never like front and center in high school or anything like that until like I got older, but I just always knew that that was my thing when I went to my freshman year of college. Like right away I was in the front and in the center of our game day routine just because that's like who I was. Like I knew that that was my strength and I played to it. And then stunting, like the throwing the people in the air, I was never thrown in the air. That was don't get it twisted. My feet stayed on the floor for the 14 years I cheered. Um but physically, like like am just a strong person. Like I can just like lift heavy weights. Like I can go to the gym after not going for a long time and still like pretty much lift the same thing that I'm always lifting. So that was just like that was always also my role was to just be like in like be solid.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's not a bad role to have, but those are the two things that really just came most natural to me as an athlete.
For sure, for sure. I think everyone at home was it. Everyone hears about the glory. Everyone hears about the good parts about it. I want to know what was the first time a routine kind of kicked your ass. Like, what was the first time you had your like oh crap moment?
So two times I was injured. They were two different injuries, but they end up being like one and the same. So my freshman year, I blew out my knee, my right knee. So I was like 15 years old, getting my like knee surgically like fixed.
Freshman
Um,
year.
Freshman year of high school. So that's like pretty early on, to be sustaining that kind of injury. And it was just I just had sustained some structural damage that had to be fixed surgically, and then my sophomore year of college, dealt with some shoulder injuries, and both my shoulders are, like, pretty my I just have bad joints. But I spent most of sophomore year not doing too much, and then we went to college nationals after that, which honestly, my shoulders really never improved. So for that, tumbling is the thing that just made me always reconsider if cheer was right for me because when you have joint problems like that and, chronic issues, like, my joints don't stay in place even now, it
Right.
just always made me question if I could, like, really continue on with cheer, if cheer was, like, right for me in that aspect.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense actually. I mean, it's kind of hard to be stable and be lifting and thrusting people if your body's falling apart.
It wasn't my strength that was the problem, clearly, it was everything else.
Yeah, yeah. What were I mean, so what would you say? I mean, outside of things like that you actually can control, like if your body's shutting down, your knee blowing, you can't really control those things. What would you say, that you were forced to develop that you can physically control?
Well, my tumbling, even though my joints were bad, it didn't stop the fact that I still had to tumble, and honestly, I never really improved past back handsprings and tucks with our tumbling coaches in high school. When I got to college, it was kinda just like a lost cause, like, I was not tumbling anymore. My body was
Gotcha.
too old. It was in too much pain. But so tumbling was something that I really like, I always worked on, like, diligently and never got any better. Like, honestly, I really never got much better at it, which is so embarrassing to admit, but I really worked hard. It was not working for me. But jumps are something that I really honed in on that I could work on by myself. I knew, like, if I couldn't tumble, I had to be really, really good at something else, and jumps was, like, going to be that for me because it was so easy to work on them by yourself at home.
Mhm.
Every day I'd be out there with my little ankle weights, my little bands, and I would be, working my little tush off out there trying to get my jumps, like, all the way up past level.
Mhm.
It worked because I think I could probably still jump now if I tried, but, I just think that I was forced to control the things I could control, which tumbling was not one of those things, so jumps became, like, my forte in terms of, like, skill.
That checks out. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, again, you got to control what you can control and turn positives into, your negatives into positives and stuff. So that makes a lot of sense. What do you despise? I mean, because there's a lot of things you just said. You talk about tumbling and stuff, but what do you probably despise to this day? Is it the tumbling that gets you, or what do you despise
Really
about
gets me
cheerleading?
that people are gonna really not like my answer to this, and I don't like competitive cheerleading, like, for myself, like, I did not like competing, like, the way that it made me feel. Once I stopped competing in college, I slept so much better at night, like, after I left Daytona in 2018, I was a new person. Maybe I wasn't a new person because I transferred after that, but I stepped off there and I knew I was transferring and I was like, "I never have to do this again," and I was rejuvenated, but I just, like, have a lot of I'm a perfectionist, so if I don't think something's gonna be perfect, it gives me a lot of anxiety, but when I was competing, I was literally getting, like, physical, like I was, like, enduring, like, the physical symptoms of stress, like, my hands were shaking, like, I was, like, throwing up afterwards, like, it was crazy, but it's something that people don't expect me to not like a lot because I obviously love cheerleading, but it's something I kind of just tolerated because it was part of the experience.
That makes sense. That's actually really interesting. I mean, because I've talked to a lot of cheerleaders and stuff before, and that's usually, like you just said, that might be considered a hot take out there.
Some of them, like, they're like, "I love that feeling, I love being on the map," but I don't like, the routine situation is just not my f and I love coaching competition cheer. I think that that's, like, coaching is so much better, but, like, when you're competing, like, it just so much is out of your control. It's like you just kinda gotta let your body take over, and I would get so much adrenaline that when it was over, I would, like, be, like, drained.
Okay,
Like, I just don't think that I like the way it made me feel more than anything.
got you. I want to add, we kind of talked about a little bit of your cheer, your cheer experiences and your personal experience about it. Coming out of high school, I don't know much about the recruiting aspect of high school, in cheer in high school. I'm not sure if your coach is to recommend you to someone, or is it kind of like Seton Hall where you walk on and just kind of try out. One, were you recruited from high school, from your high school where you recruited, and then two, if you could kind of discuss and talk about that recruiting process and what that looks like.
Okay, so I was not recruited out of high school, but
Mhm.
I will say that now when I was in 2015, 2016, when I was graduating high school, their recruiting really was not a thing in cheerleading. Now it's much more popular. I think COVID really changed the landscape of recruiting for college cheerleading. Even in 2018, there was really no recruiting. Like when I was seeking out other teams to be on, it wasn't really like I was being recruited to go there. I just kind of just showed my interest and hoped that they would like me enough to want to take me on their team. Now it's a little bit different. People go to combines and camps and clinics and other things to kind of get noticed by college coaches. And even though I coach at a very like academically rigorous, prestigious institution, I still try to do the level of recruiting I can. I mean, at a school like Kentucky, most people are going to get into Kentucky, so they take their pick from who they want, and they might get recruiting slots at schools like Alabama or Clemson. I know get slots and stuff. So, but a lot of the times you still have to be able to make it into the school to be on the team. Unique everywhere, but recruiting and cheerleading has really taken the industry by storm post COVID.
That makes sense. I mean, yeah, that's kind of, I guess that's kind of the world, right? Adapting to what
Adapt and overcome, yeah.
I was gonna say. That's kind of interesting though. I never knew that's kind of, I didn't even, this is news to me. I've never heard of a cheer combine. That's kind of unreal to me. Like that's pretty interesting. I can only,
Yeah,
like, did they just have you a bunch of flips, bunch of tumbling? Like, there's no way they got you out there running 40-yard dashes and
no,
stuff.
you do. You do run. So you do skills metrics. So you tumble and you stunt and you jump, but then they want to see your like you do an interview, they do like all sorts of other like metrics to give you a score basically on like they rank you at the combine and then coaches talk to you that way. So that's like very interesting. I mean, I don't really do a lot of I do some combine recruiting, but I don't really do too much because I'm looking for a very specific type of person. I'm not really looking for anybody that's gonna like walk off the street and want to be on a college cheer team. Um, but yeah, some schools still do the completely traditional model of just show up at tryouts in May and, try out for the team. But a lot of schools have shifted to this like clinic model where you have to go to clinics and be invited to tryouts or you do some sort of like backdoor recruiting with your school.
Okay, I mean, recruiting's his whole game. I guess as a head coach, recruiting's his own game. I guess.
Yeah, it's kinda nice to not like, I don't have to, like, go out I mean, some of my coach friends go out on the recruiting trail and, go see kids at clinics, but, I mean, I'm more of in a situation where Princeton is a very valuable brand, so I people seek me out more often than I seek them out.
That's fair. No, it's a privilege. It's definitely a privilege being at Princeton. Stuff helps you out a little bit.
Yeah.
So now I kind of want to transition a little bit into kind of the pretty, the ugly, and the nasty about cheer, right? Because there's just so much stuff out there. I remember it was a famous like cheer show. I feel like people are literally obsessed about it, but there's so much stuff that happens underneath the surface, whether it's good, bad. Because I've heard amazing stories. I've heard stories that are so inspiring. Then I've heard absolute horror stories. I guess kind of about anything, right? But although cheering has become your passion, what are some of the nasty things about the industry, that you may not like, and for people at home that may not know?
Yeah, so definitely this should definitely come with like a little bit of a trigger warning that abuse is a really, really rampant problem. All types of abuse, emotional, physical, sexual abuse. I mean, you talked about the cheer scandal on Netflix that has completely to do with, exploitation of minors and other things that just are not mandated well in our industry. I will say that the club teams, so we call them all-star teams, in cheerleading, they do have more of an issue with this than school teams. School teams, the coaches are typically mandated reporters. Like when I coach at New Providence, I was a mandated reporter. So like if I, even thought there was a child being abused, I had to report it. And you can get in a lot of trouble, obviously, if you don't report it. So that's where like the leeway of this kind of club environment, and look at USA Gymnastics had a really, really similar problem, where their club environment was perpetuating this system for abuse that was able, children were just being taken advantage of, and the adults were enabling and allowing it. So the leadership of USA Cheer and the United States All-Star Federation, it kind of just allows for it to go on. There's people on the banned list that we see at competitions, we see in warm-up rooms across the country, and there's just a real lack of regard for athlete safety. And I will say that I, always do my best to A, call people out when things aren't safe, and B, to follow the safest practices that I can. There's always going to be injuries. There's always going to be other things that happen on your team that are like out of your control. But the things you can control are like keeping your athletes safe within reason. So not letting people around them that, have a history or a pattern or even a rumor. Like where there's smoke, there's fire. So,
Mhm.
people in the industry are, they are abusive. And I think that post COVID, also, we see a lot that cheerleading really lacks a lot of sportsmanship that we maybe see or don't see in other sports. And it just can get really catty and nasty and physical in certain instances. And that like really bothers me because it's not really what cheerleaders are meant, especially in the scholastic setting, to cheer for their team, not against the other team. You're there to be a positive influence for your own team and you're cheering for your own team. And then I would say like the third major problem is there's a massive problem with eating disorders and disordered eating in the cheerleading industry. I mean, when you look at, you know, all you're doing is putting yourself under a microscope all the time. But I just feel like as, leaders in the industry and as an adult an adult in the industry, we can all just do a little bit better with, being aware of eating disorders and disordered eating as well.
Absolutely. You definitely you just harped on it a little bit. In the past, you were featured on a podcast called Cheer Fit, and it was kind of, at least for me, when I watched the podcast, it's kind of the takeaway from the podcast. You mentioned and pretty much brought up, your lacking confidence as a young girl, and eventually growing into that, but it was a lot to do with your body and body shape and body empowerment. Um, how many girls do you think experienced that exact same thing you did? And you know, how do you think that's improved over the years, if at all?
Yeah, so I will say that on my college teams, almost everybody had an undiagnosed or diagnosed eating disorder. And it's such an awful and sad thing to like admit. And obviously, I don't speak for anybody that I cheered with, but we all know what happened, and we were all there. And college teams, it's kind of like, oh, that's just how they are, and that's just how they operate. But that's not how it should be. It's not how you should operate. But when you spend so much time looking at yourself in pictures and on TV and, people like you're there as an aesthetic piece of the game,
Yep.
of the sporting event, or in competition, it's all about how you look and how aesthetically pleasing you are to the judges. So I think that with that just comes a body confidence issue for almost all cheerleaders. I would say that more people than not have problems with body confidence. And I mean, like I said, I'm 5'2". In real life, people meet me and they're like, oh my God, you are tiny. But I always felt like I was the biggest girl on my college cheer team, and I wore like a size 6 pants. So it was like 0246. And I mean, that's like I'm way smaller than the average person. But I always just like had this like weird, like warped idea that I was just like this like so big because of like the environment that I was in. And just because cheerleading is so deeply rooted in aesthetics and like you're doing your hair, you're doing your makeup. Like I literally got a spray tan today to go to the Ivy League tournament. I'm not even cheering. Like, like literally that's just how I like lived and operated for so many years. I mean, I just get them because I like to be tan. But it's just like it's just a massive problem in the industry. And as I've grown up and gotten older, I can see myself in so many of the athletes I coach and like breaks my heart because I don't want people to feel like that about themselves. But at the same time, like you are the person you spend the most amount of time with. So it's about like working on yourself, which is just like it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's tough. I mean, because to compete, it's almost like kind of acting and stuff like that. Like it's a real
Yep.
that world is insane. Like if you may not get a role because you're an inch smaller or you don't weigh a certain, like it's absurd. So it's like when it becomes
Yeah.
that detailed and that nuanced, I think naturally, all the smaller details of you looking at your body and stuff like that, I think it is natural, but it's unfortunate. It is really unfortunate. You've been very vocal. You've been very vocal, I say, in the last probably 3, 4 years, at least from what I saw. Around what time or like when did you gain the confidence? Because you admitted on CheerFit you were very insecure about it for a while, but at some point, clearly, you became a huge advocate of it and you've kind of stood against it, and I want to know what was that process like, and when would you say you started openly speaking about your experiences and just being super body empowerment?
Once I realized that the people around me were having the same thoughts and the same struggles, like, in a way, like, this is gonna sound so bad. It made me feel better because I was like, "Oh my god, wait, I'm not the only person that thinks this." Like,
Mhm.
even, like, the little teeny tiny flyer that I'm, like, tossing in the air, like, also feels like this, and she's, like, way smaller than me. So, it just, like it's not because they were struggling that made me feel better, it just made me feel like I wasn't so alone, I wasn't so isolated, and that there were just, like, so many other people that, could resonate with my words and with my, feelings. And like because I got such like open and honest feedback from people about this kind of about, body image and body positivity and all of that, um, it really, it changed my perception on, oh, I shouldn't be so closed off about this and I shouldn't have to suffer kind of in silence. And, like, I will say that I did when I transferred, like I said, it was a really difficult experience for me, so I did end up going to a good amount of therapy, but also when I left when 2020 rolled around and I graduated and the world ended all at the same time, I really grappled really hard with my, like, place in society. Because like, when you're in college and you're a cheerleader, like, you go to parties and that's who you are. You go to class and that's who you are. Like, you meet your boyfriend's mom and that's who you are. Like, that's who I was. Like, that was my entire identity. So when I graduated college and I, was just continued going to therapy 'cause it's good for you, I was really able to kind of talk with my therapist about like, well, what is like all of these things that I did in college, like, only drinking a black coffee when they gave at 8:30 p.m. and didn't give myself any sustenance the whole day. Like, that's not normal. And everybody else did it too. And everybody else was like, "Wait, that's not normal that we did that either." So it just made me feel so much better about talking about it, and people just I really feel like need somebody to talk like, somebody has to talk about it because it is, like I said, it's a rampant issue in the industry, and the more that we can be positive about healthy ways that we can fuel our bodies and treat our bodies. And I'm not saying that, everybody should eat McDonald's 3 times a day, 365 days a year. I'm just saying that like you should eat a full meal before you cheer. And like you shouldn't have to worry about if your uniform is going to fit or not after that. Um and that's more of what I mean about body image, like, things like that aren't gonna make or break your entire existence, and if anything, they're gonna make you a better athlete and perform better. So, once I was really able to transform my mindset into that, now I feel like when I talk about it, people are just much more receptive to the idea.
Yeah, as I've gotten older, I mean, I guess I was kind of naive too. I played sports stuff growing up too, and it's always different for you guys. You guys have it really tough growing up and stuff, but it's just way more common, like you said. Like I didn't realize, like, I've met a few people who really feel that way, but as I've gotten older, it's so common, and yeah, I think it was it was really it was receptive to me, and like it resonated with me because I was like, I know so many people who are going through this, and I just love it. I love everything you said about it and kind of how you stand up for it. It's kind of one of your
Yeah.
key points and stuff like that on a lot of your videos and stuff like that. So Thank you again for sharing that. And you know, we kind of got really into the ugly and bad stuff about cheer. If you don't mind harping just on a little, if you had to take three of your most positive points on why you love what you do, you know, what would those three be?
I think that cheerleading teaches you so much about what the real world is and what skills you need in the real world. Like, I can manage my time like nobody's business. I'm confident, I'm well spoken, I'm not afraid of public speaking. Like, I'm able to be in front of a crowd and, be a person that I'm really proud of, and cheerleading has really helped me do that. It also really helped me learn how to push myself, and it taught me how to set and achieve my dreams and goals and aspirations, and it gave me friendships that I'll have for the rest of my life because, you know, cheerleading is the ultimate team sport. It doesn't get much more, trusting than throwing your friends in the air and, them trusting you to catch them and not let them hit the floor. So, those 3 things really have made cheerleading, it's the reason why I still love cheerleading to death this day.
Absolutely. There's definitely a lot of the things you just stated. I feel like a lot of athletes really that's what they gravitate towards in all their sports. I think it's a very similar team aspect and relationship stuff like that. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense because it's literally a global sport. Like people love cheer, people love what it brings, what it does to them. So you know, I just wanted to give it some love as well as you know as well as the ugly a little bit. But you mentioned you know throughout the interview where you transferred from, where you went. You ended up originally going to Catholic University after high school. I believe that's in DC, correct?
Yep.
You went to Catholic. I'm assuming you walked on, or you know, and you cheered for there. You dealt with a few injuries and stuff. But as far as I know, in the first 2 years you were there, then you transferred after your sophomore year, right? Then
Yeah.
after your sophomore year, you ended up transferring to Seton Hall. I wanted to ask you, you know, before we touch the transfer, what specifically kind of drew you to that Catholic University in DC instead of kind of just staying home?
Yeah, so originally I didn't wanna go anywhere near home, which is so funny because when I came back, all I wanted to do was come back home. Um, and it was just a small school, and I always really am like, I'm a small school person, like, I literally was on the cover of that school's magazine, like, my freshman year, like, I was, like, that girl. But I just, like, loved the small school feel, and they had a really great business school, and when I was looking for colleges, I really was looking for a school that aligned with my faith, and that's something that I really was looking for. So at the time, that school was right for me, and I loved Washington, DC, and it was a really easy city to navigate, and there was a metro stop right on campus, and it was just it had so many opportunities, for me as a young student. It was for freshman year, Claudia, like, that was the right fit. Like, I'm not saying that if I did it over again, I would ever go to Seton Hall for 4 years. That was the right fit for me at that time. And I was able to cheer, and Catholic has a pretty reputable Division 3 athletic department, and they had really good Division 3 facilities, honestly. And I had the opportunity to compete in cheerleading, and while I said I didn't really like competing, it's something that I really am happy that I did in college.
Doing it in college, is that when you found out like this maybe isn't for me, or
Yeah, it was just way too much for me. It was way too much for me to handle. It's very emotionally taxing.
I can imagine. You know, now I want to transfer a little bit. Ironically, use that word, but I definitely want to transition a little bit because you did transfer after your sophomore year to Seton Hall. I want to ask you, especially for viewers at home. I know what it's like on the football side, basketball side. It is a dramatic difference between going from D3, D1 as an athlete. However, I've never dealt with it or know anyone who's dealt with it on the cheering side. What would you say is the biggest difference going from D3 to a D1 program in the Big East out of all? Like, I mean, it's a little different. I don't know where you were traveling for DC and stuff. I just
Yeah, we weren't. We
okay.
were not.
I was about
Um,
to say, Big East
Going to
very different.
especially a Power 6 school is really, and I mean, like, people say, "Oh, like, whatever." We don't have football, so we're not gonna be a Power 5 school. Basketball's Power 6. Big East is legit. But it just the really the caliber of everything was just had that edge at the Division 1 level. Even the caliber of where we cheered. I mean, we Seton Hall basketball plays every single game at the Prudential Center, men's basketball plays every single game at the Prudential Center, and even our women's games, every single game was a production. Like from start to finish, everything was a production. A men's basketball game at Seton Hall as a cheerleader takes 8 hours from start to finish to execute. From the time that you sit down to put your makeup on to the time that you walk back in your door after it's over, it takes 8 hours to finish. So it really like it was your entire life. And I'm not saying that cheerleading was not my entire life. There just was not nearly the hype around sports at a D3 school. And I will say the quality of my teammates tremendously improved. And I'm not like obviously like my teammates at Catholic were great, but the quality of the skill in my teammates was so much better. But I will say like in every sport, like there are D3 schools that are really good and like you go to like Defiance or one of those other schools where that's like that's all they have is like that's the sport in the town or like JUCOs are like that too. So there are outliers to every single, and there are really, really good Division 3 cheerleading programs. And I'm like not knocking D3 programs, but just the level of money. I mean, money makes the world go round. So it just influences the way that everything happens in every sport. I was cheering on national television 3 times a week. Like
Yep.
Catholic, like didn't even like sniff ESPN Plus. Like
Yeah.
it's it just is like it's just different. And like you said, the facilities are different. It's just it just is it's different. It's right for different people. But seeing both sides, I mean, Division 1 was obviously way better for me. I mean, you get more clothes, you get more everything, but um it's different, but there's value in both.
That makes sense. That's a really good answer. It kind of gave me a little bit of insight, but it does sound similar, I guess. I mean, like let's be real. I don't know who you were cheering for. Again, no shots at D3. Shout out to them. But I mean, like I don't know who you were cheering for, but you were cheering to see home with Miles Powell there, and Miles Powell, one of the top players in the freaking country. For people who don't know the Big East, by the way, that's like Seton Hall, UConn, Nova. That the division is loaded. It's top heavy. The rest kind of but top heavy for sure. And it's a very competitive division, and no joke. So I can more story. I can only imagine what it's like cheering in the Rock. I've been in the Rock before, covering games and reporting. So the atmosphere is freaking insane. And at
Yeah.
The Walsh Gym is unreal too with the ladies. Yeah, like I mean, I don't know what it was like at D3, but I can only imagine. I can only imagine the elevation.
It was not close to the same types of games.
I do want to ask you, so you just kind of talked about the differences. What would you say the biggest misconception is from going from D3 to D1?
I think that just because you go to a D3 school doesn't mean you're not going to compete and you're not going to practice a lot. Um, we had football at Catholic, and so we were literally in season from the week before the first week of school until the middle of April. We came back early. There was no fall break, that just didn't exist. We came back early from Christmas break. We stayed for spring break. We had Easter break. We could go home for like 2 days. It was like literally Easter Saturday, and I think I was like literally on a train on Easter Sunday back to DC. Yeah, so that doesn't mean that you're not gonna practice, you're not gonna work hard. I mean, obviously there's different like it's just different, but I think the biggest misconception is that like, oh, I'm just gonna go to a D3 school and like, you know, just like ride the rainbow road and it's gonna be all rainbows and sunshine and I'm not gonna like have to run the timed mile and like whatever. We did all that. We had Sunday practice, 2 days. We had all that. Like that all existed at D3 and at a D3 school. So I think that people always think that Division 3 athletes don't work hard, but that's not true.
That's not. They just don't get a scholarship for it, but they work extremely hard. As you
Yeah,
said, 3 days, 4 a day. Oh, it's unreal.
it's 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 awful.
We just talked about you transferring to Seton Hall. I'm a Rutgers alum, by the way. So I mean, yeah, I know. It's the one thing. It's the one thing that kind of I was reading up on. I was like, she chose the wrong school, but I wanted to ask you, like again, like even with cheer, I mean, because Seton Hall, amazing school to go to, D1, great athletics. They also have a very heavy religious based school, so it makes a lot of sense. But what was the difference for you? Like, why did you end up choosing Seton Hall over where you're at now, like a Princeton, or why Rutgers, or there's so many schools throughout the state, Rider, and whatever school why did you specifically end up choosing Seton Hall over the other big schools in the state?
Yeah, well, I actually have a really big, family connection to Seton Hall, so now that I graduated from Seton Hall, I am, like, a 3rd legacy, so my grandpa went to Seton Hall, and then my dad went to Seton Hall, and then I went to Seton Hall, so my future children will go there too. They will have no choice. They will be Pirate fans. Um, but I think that that was just natural to even just look at Seton Hall. Even when I was transferring, I still was looking for a school that was more was just religious based, and Seton Hall is obviously a Catholic school. That was something that like meant something to me. And then it's just closer to my house than Rutgers is. It's closer to my house than Rider is. It's closer to my house than Princeton is. I would never got into Princeton. Princeton like doesn't really take transfers either, but like very special circumstances, and I was not one of them. Um, so I just think that it just checked all the boxes for me, and I was trying to transfer like pretty late in the game. So yeah, it was just it like I said, Catholic was the right choice for freshman year Claudia, and Seton Hall was the right choice for junior year Claudia.
Makes a lot of sense. What would you say? Because each it seems like each college you had your own unique experience, right? Catholic, that's a D3 experience. It's your freshman year. Lord knows that's a different world. Your freshman year of college and stuff. Then going in a little season, junior year, transferring, that's its own process. And then joining that team, doing that stuff. Then from there, jumping pretty much to you jump to New Prof High School, where you cheered there mainly. I mean, you coached there. Then from there, you transferred, ended up in Princeton as the head coach and stuff like that. I want to ask you, what has been the biggest transition from not only competing but coaching? Is it very? It's got to be very different than from performing than coaching. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so being a coach is just a different kind of responsibility. I mean, obviously I was at Catholic my sophomore year, I was the underclassman. So there's like an upperclassman captain and an underclassman captain, and I was the underclassman captain. So my senior year at Seton Hall, I was the captain too. So um it's just a different kind of responsibility. Like I said, I've been captain, like I was a leader, like, I always tried to kind of just lead by example, but um I'm in charge of everybody now. Like I'm the show. Like everybody looks at me and is like, what are we doing today? Which is definitely was always a change. I never like really had an organic end to my cheerleading career. Like it just was very abrupt. I was just like, I think it was like literally probably 3 years ago on Sunday, just like
Uh,
over one day, just done. You're not going to the Big East tournament today. So just like getting to see the sport from a different perspective is just a really big adjustment. Like I said, when I graduated during COVID, I had a I struggled a little bit with the adjustment, and like I did go to therapy about it, which I know people say is so dramatic, but it helped. But definitely like seeing the value of now being on the other side is something that has been a wonderful transition for me, and it just keeps me involved for the rest of you can't cheer for your whole life. It's too hard on your body. It's not like golf, where you can just play for the rest of your life. There has to be an end. It needs to end at some point. And so what better time than when it was time to coach?
yeah, I mean, look, talk about easy transit. Like that's a nice smooth. Most people you end and then you're a car salesman, or you end, and you do something completely different. You're blessed enough to stay in the world, to do what you've been doing for years. Like you're a legitimate expert. I mean, so that's really cool. People, a lot of people don't know, they may not know. the other side of you. They know who you are as a cheerleader. They know who you are as a coach. They kind of know your background of that nature. But a lot of people may not know, you studied, you were a grad student at Seton Hall as well. You got an MBA. So which means you're legit like a professional. You're a professional. You have a career outside of cheer, because that's also your career. It's what you love to do. But you legit wear, business suits, and you dress up,
So
and you go be an adult, right? With that said, like coaching at New Prov and juggling, working at a firm and stuff like that. Can you speak to those experiences, and even now, like head coaching for Princeton and juggling some of your freelance gigs, and while also still having, your regular job, your day-to-day job? How has that been for you, juggling and maintaining things of that nature?
yeah, like you said, I'm a juggler. I could be in the circus at this point because I've mastered the juggling act. All of this was a grind, but I've always been juggling. Like my first year out of college, I was like you said, I was getting my MBA and I was coaching new prov. And I'd I was already getting my MBA. Like that was I went into the accelerated program after my junior year of college, which was like we I literally sat on my first day of college at Seton Hall and was like, I'm gonna get an MBA this like after I'm done with this. I was so ambitious. But that's just like who I always was. Like I always am just like looking for like another opportunity to make myself like improve myself and make myself be the best version of myself that I can be. So it I've always been grinding and I just was already getting my MBA. So much of the world was closed at that time. So coaching and getting my MBA, it was hard. But if the real world existed during that time, it would have been more difficult than it was. Um, but some people just get their MBA full time and they have it hard enough. And some people just coach and it's hard enough for them. So I was juggling like, you know, both at the same time. But I mean, coaching consumes my life and my time and attention, most of my time and attention from August to April, I would say, to like mid this year it'll be end of April. But like I really couldn't tell you the last time I had a weekend where like on Saturday and Sunday I had off and I wasn't doing anything. That's like a real rarity for me. So that is something that I mean, I just like being busy. But last year I was coaching New Prov and I was coaching Princeton at the same time. I was a shell of a person. It
Oh,
was tremendous. It was took a tremendous toll on my mental and physical existence in the world. But like you said, I'm also like building a career for myself outside of coaching. If, I mean, I think coaching is working out for me now, but it's always good to, have something else in your back pocket.
absolutely.
And that takes up most of my like daytime hours. But like I said, when you asked me what the things I loved the most about cheer, like I've learned how to manage my time. Like I'm looking at my planner sitting on my desk right across from here. But like that thing is like my Bible. It has everything that I need to do in one day in it. It has all notes from like meetings I have and whatever. So like I like have a physical planner that I love to death. And that is how I exist in this world from little box that I cross off to little box that I can cross off. Like this was on my planner today. Um, just because like I'm just somebody who's motivated by setting and achieving goals. So like completing everything on my to-do list is a goal I'm going to achieve for the day. So it doesn't seem like it's a big goal, but it is something that I do achieve. So, I mean, balancing it all can be really, really difficult. And I don't really have so much of a personal life when I'm coaching. But I find time to get things done. But my friends and my family know that like you can see me from May till August, maybe some of April. You could see me. But so it's funny. People will text me like last week. My friends were like, Claudia, like, what are we doing for your birthday? It's on Saturday. I was like, my birthday?
What's that?
I was like, what? I will be going to basketball games the whole day of my birthday on Saturday. And last year like we went to Harvard for the Ivy League tournament for my birthday. So like in college we were always playing games on my birthday. Like it's just a part of my existence, but it's important to like have priorities and prioritize. And for me, like coaching is a priority and my work is a priority. And I'm not saying that like I'm somebody who has no life because I do have a life and I have family and I have friends. Um, But yeah, it just like you just fit it all in when you can.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was gonna say to the planner thing, I think that's the point. I kind of knew I was a real adult. I have two planners now. I have one like dedicated for life, like daily life, like oh, groceries, do this, and then I have one dedicated strictly to games and stuff. It's absurd. I got like you said, it's the Bible. There's nothing better than freaking crossing those lines, putting a check in. So trust me, I get it. I get it. You kind of hit all the points there, man. I was gonna say, I mean, because when a lot of times when you're juggling as much as you are, and then also trying to find time for family, find time for your boyfriend, or find time for whoever, it's extremely difficult. And people, if you're not kind of in it, especially in the sports world, like you can explain it, but they don't really respect it. Like
Yeah.
you're so busy, it's very hard to find like a really healthy balance. And I was gonna say, I mean, you may not have the opportunities to do them, but when you do, and I do think this is healthy. I think everyone should have this in their life, in their career. Your life shouldn't be consumed with your whole career and stuff like that.
No.
It's just not healthy. You know what I mean? What are some of your hobbies? Although you may not have the opportunity to do them all, what are some of your hobbies that literally help you kind of embrace the moment, stay in the moment, and kind of just kill time? Like, what are some of your things you really love to do to just kind of get away from the world a little bit?
Yeah, so it's so funny because originally my Instagram started as a hobby.
Okay.
That was the OG hobby that I had, like, when I was, like, 22,
Okay.
was making this Instagram. So that Instagram started in August of 2020 was when Coach Claudia's persona was created on Instagram. I mean, like, I have a regular Instagram that I, like, operate in the world. My friends and family have me on, but I just, like to keep them both se those 2 people are separate people. Um, but clearly it has grown, and I feel like within the year, I had, like, 10,000 followers. Like, it was like, all of a sudden, like, overnight, like, I had one video that got, like, 35 million views.
That's
And,
awesome.
like, that's the video that, like, m made Coach Claudia. So I've had a few that have gotten over 1,000,000 views, but that I mean, that's my claim to fame, I guess. But that started as a hobby, but now that's turned a little bit more into work, than a hobby, but I enjoy Coach Claudia, like, I love updating her. I can't wait to check after this interview to see how my post today did. Um, like, I love that,
Yeah.
but I do other things that involve n not my phone, which are I love to travel. I just went to Atlanta, what, like 3 weeks ago, to some sort of, like, cheerleading situation. I mean, cheerleading is obviously, like, my hobby. I love to watch cheerleading. I would go to a cheerleading competition for the whole day and be happy as a clam and just sit and watch. I would love to do that. If anybody's watching this that's a cheerleader, invite me to your competition. I will come. I have gone to people's competitions. Um but I love traveling. I went to Atlanta, like, I love exploring new places. I'm going to Italy this summer. I got Charleston or no, not Charleston. I'm going to Charlotte, I'm going to St. Louis, I'm going to Atlanta again, I'm going to hopefully going to Jacksonville, going to Italy, like, all in the off season. So, I definitely get around. I love trying new food, new culture, like, all that stuff. I will probably plan more trips because I can never stay in one place in the off season for too long. But my, like, grandma hobbies are crossword puzzles and regular, like, puzzles, like, you put the like a jigsaw puzzle, like, I have a puzzle table, that I when I need to be away from my phone, I put some Elvis on, and I do my puzzles like it's the 1960s, and it's so, like, it just requires me to, like, use my mind, even, like, crossword puzzles, you gotta keep the mind fresh, like, I also like to play chess against my boyfriend, even though he beats me every time. Hopefully, he watches this and he's gonna be like, "Oh my god, you never win." But I never win. But yeah, I feel like I, like, love other, I love working out, but I feel like that's just an extension of cheerleading. So, like, crossword puzzles and puzzles are, like, my and chess are, like, my other hobbies.
Like brain food a little bit.
You gotta keep the mind sharp. I mean, coaching is like it's all about how fresh the mind is.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you, like kind of when you're breaking away from your coaching, right? Like kind of, I mean, just to go back a little bit and quick, as you just mentioned, keeping your mind sharp. when you come up with certain routines, like that's also like I feel like routines, dancing, you're pulling from wherever. Like any little thing could be inspiration. You could see anything. You could see a movement. You could see a kid fall and be like, "Oh, genius," or whatever the case. I have no clue. But by the way, one of my favorite movies of all time. Anyone knows me, Bring It On. One of my favorite movies with Gabrielle is by far one of my favorite movies. I love it.
I love it.
I love Bring It On. But what I was gonna say is it's just like I think it's kind of cool because that's kind of where I feel like you guys incorporate your real life into dancing and into your choreography and routines and things like that. Would you agree, or is that kind of accurate?
Yeah, that's why I say like I love to watch cheerleading because I love to like get, and obviously like I don't like steal ideas or anything, but like getting inspiration from other choreographers and other people that like I look up to in the industry or teams that I really like in the industry is something that I really just like enjoy. Like I will watch college nationals like for the whole weekend. I will watch high school nationals for the whole weekend. I didn't get to go to States because I was in New Jersey States because I was in Atlanta that weekend. But normally that is something that I would go to and sit there the whole day and watch from start to finish. Somebody made a joke the other day to me and said, Claudia, if you studied neuroscience as much as you study cheerleading, you could cure cancer. And I said, I'm making a different kind of impact in the world. There are already people studying neuroscience.
That's a fact.
I'm studying cheerleading.
That's a fact. That's a fact. I mean, look, you do what you love. You do what you love, and not too many people can say that, unfortunately. And it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool where you could dedicate your time and your energy to where you actually feel fulfilled. You know what I mean? So it's a very unique opportunity, and it's just unreal that you're living it. You know what I mean? Like you're living it, man. You're living a lot of people's dreams. So congrats to you, and I just wish you well in your journey. But just to close out a little bit of this great interview because this has been amazing. In conclusion, for anyone at home that may follow, you have tons of followers. Clear, you just kind of mentioned you have a bunch of videos over 1 million. A couple TikToks and stuff you've done, and like just different videos all over. So safe to say you have a fan base or people who are looking and following you. Is there any advice you like to leave them? Is there any advice you like to leave any younger girls or boys that may resonate with your story or just be motivated and inspired by you?
Yeah, that don't ever let anybody tell you no or tell you that your dreams are too big because anything is possible with hard work and determination and grit, and if you grind that you can achieve anything, and that people that are trying to drag you down, they're already behind you, right? Look ahead and always gamble on yourself. Always bet on yourself, and you are the one that will make your dreams come true. And like growing up, I was never the star of the team, but I never let that stop me or bother me. And I can stand here and say that I proved a lot of people wrong, and it really feels it feels good.
Absolutely. I mean, look, that's kind of been your whole ordeal, man. Your story's been very kind of grind, overcome, dominate, relentless energy. You know what I mean? It's very inspiring, and I can't thank you enough here at She Got Game. We're very happy. You made time for us in your very busy schedule, so we're extremely appreciative, and we wish you well going forward.
Thank you. I'm so happy that we got to do this.